Daisy Ridley recently did an interview where she reveals that JJ Abrams had not just treatments, but scripts for episodes 8 and 9 written in an interview with a French publication, Le Magazine, which has been translated, thank you so much to the Tumblr user Daisy Ridley's. That's quite an interesting name. Anyway, she was asked whether or not Rey's backstory had been decided before The Force Awakens wrapped, or if it had been resolved with The Last Jedi. And Ridley says that she didn't seem to know the answer to that specific question, so she explained what she understood about the overall writing process, and she reveals that JJ actually had a full trilogy outlined that it seems that Rian Johnson probably looked at but completely ignored for The Last Jedi. David, let's go ahead and start with you first on this topic. When you hear that J.J. Abrams actually had an outline, an actual script for 8 and 9, how do you react to that news?
I'm kind of excited by that because in the last 6 months we've been talking about The Last Jedi and what it was going to bring and then what it actually brought. We've kind of criticized Disney on their lack of an overall plan with their story writing group. So if they had a plan and they threw it out the window, well, that kind of makes sense to me the way the movie turned out.
Jesse, do you have, would you, I keep going back and forth because I always say I would really like to have known what George Lucas's treatments for 7, 8, and 9 were. Now you find out that J.J. Abrams wrote scripts for 7, 8, and 9. Having seen The Last Jedi, what do you think when you hear that J.J. actually had set up this whole trilogy that we've talked about seems like a baton race?
My first reaction to that is did he feel like potentially if Rian Johnson didn't do well, was he basically told to be on standby? Was it more in case of emergency, break glass kind of thing? Or was he just more prepared for the possibility of making this entire trilogy, 7, 8, and 9.
I wonder if this is a thing for a director where they have to understand if they're going to create a character here, do they need to know their background and then their end result? Because there's interviews with George Lucas where he did the original trilogy, but then he went back and he wrote the origins. He had to have the origins to know how they got here.
Yeah.
And then he also had 7, 8, and 9, a basic endpoint for all these characters. So I wonder if JJ took the same approach. I highly doubt there's a chance that we would be able to read those scripts.
I would love to get my hands on them just to see the even if it's obviously they wouldn't be we don't know about 9.
David, is this a bigger story because of all the divisiveness surrounding Star Wars The Last Jedi, the Rian Johnson directed film, the one that he wrote by himself and directed by himself?
I think it's more like a neat tidbit of knowledge that there was a plan at some point. I don't know if it's necessarily breaking story because we didn't hear what that outline for 8 and 9 that Abrams allegedly put together actually held. But I think it is neat to know that at some point Abrams sat down and said, screw it, we'll just write an outline for all 3.
But if you write that outline for all 3, that's fine and well, but then Rian Johnson completely ignores it, which is why we have JJ Abrams and Terrio coming back after The Last Jedi releases, having to write a brand new script for Episode 9.
Do you think that it's the reason why they brought Abrams back because they knew what direction he wanted to take the 3rd movie in, and after this, the Last Jedi was so divisive, they decided to take it back to Abrams' original vision?
I think that's valid, but I don't think there's any way to bring it back to his vision because the Rian Johnson has taken the trilogy in this completely different direction.
2 words: dream sequence.
Yeah,
all of this was while Finn was in his coma, just dreaming about this.
There we go. You see, it's an alternative to Luke's, Force vision, dreamlike state. It was Finn in a comatose.
Well, now here's my thing. We've all seen the last couple episodes of Star Wars Rebels.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Well, you're going to get spoiled here, and if you haven't watched the last 2, you're going to get spoiled too. We now know that time and the Force work hand in hand, that there's this point of existence, this plane of existence that all time exists around. If that's the best way I can explain it. It's kind of a complex thing that Dave Filoni and friends gave us in Star Wars Rebels recently. But man, could that kind of lore be explored in Episode 9 and somehow we bring back Luke. There's talks of that on the. That just seems like a little extreme.
They're going to do that.
But I feel like that's the only tool that JJ could call upon if he really wanted to retcon what has been done. And I think if you waste a saga film on retconning a full episode behind it, I really think that's just admitting defeat, throwing the white flag in the air. It would ultimately be a waste. I think you have to move forward.
You would have to have an additional film. You'd have the film kind of, it really would be like, okay, this happened, and then they had to do this to, fix it. It's not canon anymore, but look at The Force Unleashed. Starkiller was cloned, then basically that clone became, Starkiller.
So how would that factor in with 9? You're going to clone Luke?
They got a hand somewhere.
Well, they might. We might.
They might, but
to me, the only thing they can retcon really is if they decide that Rey's parents actually mean something and they were important, because then they could just explain it off that Kylo was messing with her by telling her that they were nobodies.
Or Luke disappearing isn't him dying. Mm-hmm. I think we're all led to believe at the end of The Last Jedi that he is dead. He has become one with the Force.
He won with the Force kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll just see. But it's just interesting that this kind of comes out the week after it's confirmed that JJ has finished the Episode 9 script. So he clearly, maybe it didn't take that long to try and decide how long it takes to create a full movie script. I think that's relative to the movie. I'm sure some people can do it in a month. Some people do it in 3 months, maybe half a year. I'm not really 100% sure on how that process works, but
I think it depends on the movie, because if it's going to be like a Lord and Miller type movie, they do a lot of improvisation, where a Ron Howard movie is going to be a lot more scripted. So if you just have a general idea, you can just go on set and say, this is what we want to get accomplished. Go talk to each other.
It would be really fun, though. It would really be fun to go and see what JJ Abrams did do for those 8 and 9 scripts.